what is one belief about midlife that you wish women could unlearn?
Guilt. Stop
Guilt.
feeling guilty. I
There's
don't
so
know.
much shame and so much guilt, around
And we're
women.
guilty about everything.
Yes.
We're guilty that we're doing things right. We're guilty that we're not doing things right. We're guilty about guilt and guilt and guilt.
Yeah.
And I don't know why it's been handed down for so many generations that we should feel guilty, that we just automatically, it's a guilt. You have to feel guilty. And that's something that we definitely have to work on and stand up more for what we need and speak up for ourselves and let that guilt not in at all. There's nothing to feel guilty about most of the time.
Hello and welcome to Ego Was Here. Today I'm joined by Heike Yates, a midlife health, fitness, and mindset coach, helping women find strength, peace, and self-acceptance. Hello.
Anna, thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm super excited.
I'm super excited to have so many questions to ask you. Because as a woman going towards midlife, which I don't know, what is midlife considered age-wise?
The verdict is out. It depends on who you ask. And if you ask me, I am 64 now. This year I'm going to be 65. And people are saying, oh, you wrote your book about the midlife, but you're already 64. And to
Mhm.
me, Anna, midlife starts at 40 because this is where the most change is starting to happen, like
Yes.
empty nesting, some women already going perimenopause. And I think till 80. And the reason I think till 80 is when I look at the clients that I work with
Uh-huh.
that are in their late 70s and early 80s, which back in the days, we would have thought, grandma material.
Yes.
They're starting second, third careers at this age. So,
Mhm.
and I feel that this midlife, of course, you ask many other people, and I watched a YouTube video about somebody asking people what they thought midlife was. Some people didn't even know what that was, but they were saying 50. 50 is midlife. But
Yes.
I don't feel that way. It marks the moment of menopause, but is it
Mhm.
really midlife? So that's my range.
Yes. Heike, before we dive into your journey, could you tell us a little about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, I'm originally from Germany. That's why I have this funny name, Heike. And
Wonderful
yeah,
name.
and I'm living in the States now. I've been here for 40 years and I moved here to explore the world, to have lots of adventures and to, travel different countries with the foreign service I was working for. And I came to a full stop here in Washington, D.C., where I met my first husband and gained 50 pounds during my first pregnancy. And
Um,
I had no idea how to lose the weight, how to get in shape. And I grew up in Germany where exercise is built in, just like in Greece. You walk a lot, you bike a lot,
yes.
you take public transportation. So you're always moving instead
Mhm.
of getting in your car, driving somewhere.
Mhm.
And that was a big difference here because everybody drives. And
Yes.
so I missed out on the exercise, but I had no idea what else to do. My parents didn't grow up with exercise. They
Mhm.
never taught me to, like they do now, go to the swim team, play tennis, do all these things that we allow our kids now have the choice to do.
Mhm.
And so I sat there and I was like, I have no idea how to get back in my old body. And even though the story is at where I have my child, but I think a lot of women in midlife can relate to that. I want to
Mm.
get back in my own body again.
Yes.
And so I started taking a fitness class. And I had such a great time. A friend of mine asked me to to join her for a class at the what's called the YMCA. It's organized fitness programs and exercise programs, and they taught a class called Dancercise. Now, most women love to dance, so that was right down my alley. And I joined the class, and it was so much fun, so much camaraderie. I could bring my son to childcare, and just had an hour just for me. And that's how it started. And then they asked me if I wanted to become a teacher. And I said, me? No, 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 no. I'm not doing that. I'm not hopping around in front of people. And my husband said, no, no, no. You need to go. You'll be good at it. People like you. And that's how my career in fitness really started, because I let go of my former life at the embassy. Now
Mhm.
I was a mom. Then my second child, my daughter, was born 3 years later, and I built my career around where I was in life. So I was the young mom with 2 kids. So I was around women that had children, that wanted to
Mhm.
get in shape, and then it progressed over the last 40 years to, where I'm now working with people between the ages of 40, and I have to say, my oldest client will be 100 next week.
Wow,
And
that's
so I
fantastic.
It's wonderful. So I have this big variety, but I'm primarily working with women, especially in my brand, Pursue Your Spark.
Mhm.
And I feel that every 10 years, I would go with the group of women that I felt destined to. And right now, it is the women in midlife.
Yes. With all of your years of knowledge and experience, did you feel prepared when you reached midlife?
I don't know if I was prepared. I went through a divorce, which was
Mm.
not so great, but you know what? I never really thought about it because I truly believe that exercise is the key to
To
everything.
everything.
At that point, I was a bodybuilder. Then I became an ultra marathon runner. And then I did an triathlon Ironman distance, so swim, bike, and run. And I
Wow.
always found an outlet, I think, for the anxiety and all the thoughts and the things we feel when we go through air quote midlife, that I would go out for a run if I was really agitated.
Mhm.
I would, lift weights if I was really angry at something. Or I would just go and teach Pilates because I needed something to breathe. And I also used to teach yoga. So that was an addition. So every time through these years, I felt that exercise was really the key for me to go over or get over what we feel when menopause hits, all the side effects. And I remember I did one race and I was getting so hot. I was on the run portion and my cheeks were glowing. And I'm thinking, I'm not working so hard. I just had a hot flash in the middle of the race. I was like, oh, this is what happens, and let's put exercise in the forefront of that. Even though you may be really tired, you haven't slept at night, you can
Mhm.
always do something to mitigate those. So I haven't thought about it. I think exercise was my key to blow through this.
Yes, yes. And from your experience, both personally and with others, can intense training cross the line into self punishment in a way?
Oh my goodness, yes, 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 absolutely. That is a big hidden myth that we don't talk often about, because exercise absolutely can be a form of punishment. I am not good enough, so I'm going to work out really hard, so I'm hurting the next day. Or I ate something this weekend that I, air quotes again, shouldn't have been eating,
Yeah.
and now I need to work off those pounds. uh, Absolutely. And it's hard to know yourself when you cross that line, because everything seems so normal.
Hmm.
Everything, everything feels this is what you should do. So it's really helpful to have a coach or a good friend who's really honest with you and says, "Hey, listen, do you overexercise right
Hmm.
now? Why are you going for a run 5 days a week and run for 50 miles or whatever
Yes.
forever and ever? What's going on?"
And what surprised you the most about that phase of life, and what do you see most women are struggling at that point when reaching, midlife?
Hmm. I think I believe that women struggle with their identity. They're struggling with who am I now? And I wrote this in my book, Pursue Your Spark.
Pursue your spark, yeah.
My book where I talk more about people say you wrote a book about fitness. And I said, no, it's not about that. It's about that self-doubt. It's about where do I fit in now? What is next for me in life? And so many of us are in what's now coined the sandwich generation. We're in the middle. We have our parents on one end that we need to take
Yes.
care of.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
then we have our children, or even like in my case, I have grandchildren. So we're somewhere in the middle
Hmm.
and we really don't know who we should run to first, who we should honor first, should we help now. And so we're starting to neglect us in a
Hmm.
sense of self-care. What is that what we want? And I talk about this in my book that women start being in this gap, and that gap turns then, as it keeps going, into a trap, like perfectionism. I'm the perfect daughter. I'm the perfect grandma. I'm the perfect everything.
Hmm.
And this, for instance, this example, perfectionism is such a big trap that we willingly step into because it gives us a sense of justification of why we feel the way we're feeling, that why we are doing what we're doing, and that it's okay
Because
to
we want
neglect.
to feel enough, right?
Yes, yes. And so
Is that possible?
to feel enough.
Yes.
Anna, I think
In every
it's
aspect of our life.
what is enough? What is enough? When is it enough?
Well, I don't really know. I don't
So
really
what are
know.
yeah, what are the things that's when you say, am I enough? Who is holding that measuring stick? We hold that measuring stick up to what ideal? Who are we measuring our enough on the Instagram account with the woman that may be the same age you are and has a rocking body and has it all together? And you feel like a hot mess
Yes.
and you just can't even get your exercise times in? I don't know what is enough. Or do you compare yourself to just like as also your younger self, which a lot of
Hmm.
women
Hmm.
uh prescribe to? Oh, when I was younger. Well, that was then, but this is now. What is it now? What is enough for you where you feel happy and fulfilled? And that takes some answering your why question, which nobody wants to do either. Why am I here? Why do I have this goal? Where do I want to go? And when I know, what do I do now? Instead of saying, yes, I have my why. I want to be stronger and run around with my grandkids. Or, that being of enough is very tricky, I think. And everybody has to answer that for themselves. But it really requires you to look inward to know what it is that you really want from life.
Yes. Yes. And midlife usually comes with a sense of like, I should be further by now, in a way.
Yeah,
Um,
further, yeah.
right? Because we always think that there are so many things that we haven't done, and, because we compare ourselves to other people's lives. We have all those society standards. Um, so how can you uh, get out of that trap?
I like the comparison trap. That's one of in my book as well, comparing yourself to others or to your former self. Comparison can be healthy in a sense that it can be motivational. It's like, you know what? This woman on Instagram, I just use Instagram because I usually hang out on Instagram a
Yeah.
lot, um, is she does pull-ups, pulling her body weight by herself. This could be a great motivation to say, I want to do that. This would be awesome to
Mhm.
do this. But if you
Yes.
compare yourself to that particular woman and the rest of her body, and I have a very special friend of mine that's actually doing that right now. She started a year ago to do pull ups. and I think she can do 5 now or 8 or something. It doesn't really matter. But so the comparison becomes good, but when the comparison becomes um, self-defeating or hurting yourself, that you become obsessed that you cannot do a pull-up. It may have just physiological reasons because your
Mhm.
arms are shorter or your torso is longer or whatever it is. Um, but it's a two-way road. It can be motivating, but it also can be defeating,
Discouraging. Yes.
discouraging. Yeah, that's a good word, discouraging. And so we have to be honest again. And let's use the pull-up as an example. Why do I wanna do these pull-ups? Because I think it's cool? Great. Have
Because I
at
wanna
it.
feel strong.
Yep. Do you do this just to impress your husband? That's not too bad, but it has to be something for you that
Mm.
you get out of it. Like you said, get stronger. With strength comes confidence.
Mhm.
And that is a way out of the trap that you say, look at me. I can do a pull up. Look at my biceps now. And look at my back. I got way stronger. I can wear that strapless dress now. There's all these little feelings.
Yes.
And I'm not afraid of talking about myself and how I feel and what I look.
Mhm. Mhm. Is there something about midlife that we fail to address or don't give enough attention to?
Not enough attention in what sense?
Like, we always speak about the ups and downs, the hormones, questioning yourself, your identity. But is there something else, something that we don't talk about that's really important?
You know what? It is normalizing the process.
Hmm.
You're not going through this by yourself. There's a lot of women. And again, that's a spectrum. Some women really go like through the menopause and all this in a really, really hard way. Others like fly through and don't have this whole
Yeah.
situation of loneliness and depression and sleepless nights and all that. But let's normalize that. That is not our grandmothers had this. Our children, daughters had it, will have it, depending on our age groups. But it's not suddenly worse less. We're not less than, and we are also. It's not like this life changing experience. It is
Hmm.
normal. And you said the hormones go up and down, and I was thinking of our life. We're not always on the up. There's downs. There have to be downs.
Of
And
course.
then
Of
you
course.
learn from those downs and then you go back up. Maybe not as high as you have before because you learned some lessons throughout. But I think that midlife, let's talk about gray hair. It's normal. It's no longer the fashion girls are wearing gray hair. It's normal to get wrinkles. It's
Yes.
normal to have flabby skin and hanging our triceps. It is normal. Normalize what older bodies look like, and we all age differently. So everybody has their own plight and their own problems with their bodies and their minds. And some people are easier to get out of the mindset traps because they're willing to do the work. Others take a
Mhm.
little longer. But let's normalize this conversation that
Yes.
it's not just, ooh, yeah, she's in menopause. Oh, she's in midlife. Ah, yeah. I don't know what that even means.
Yes, but Heike, do you think society allows women to age without shame? Or are we taught
Depends.
to feel guilty for changing?
I would say it almost depends on the country.
Hmm.
I think that, for instance, Asian countries embrace women getting older and their knowledge and the way they are as grandmothers and support to the family, just to use one category, or Latinos, or I'm sure in Greece, there's a big family support. Here in the States, not so much. There's a lot more buy potions, color your hair, you have to look your best. You can't, also, there's a very much the judgment also from, I think, from other women that are looking at you going, she's not dressed well.
Mm.
Um,
But I think social media, uh,
mm,
played a very important part in that.
when you also think our the makeup industry, the fashion industry, how
Of
much
course.
money they rake in, billions, not just millions, billions of dollars, to promise that we will look younger, that we will look better, that we look like, that we're more desirable if we use their creams, and do
And not only the
extensions.
supplements, the vitamins, the everything, yeah.
Yeah, it's
The
and
list is
so
endless.
it
Yeah.
is endless, and they drive the market, and I think it's really hard to escape that market, because
Mhm.
marketing is intended to be enticing and
Yes.
to make you doubt yourself,
Mm.
which I think is very interesting, because I do a lot of marketing for my brand, and I'm doing research, and it's really interesting that the more the marketers make you doubt yourself, the more likely you are to buy a product. Isn't it interesting?
That's very interesting.
It's makes me
Yeah,
queasy.
yeah.
But the doubt that we already carry in ourselves, we don't need to doubt ourselves. We are fine. We're perfect the way we are. We are the way we're meant to be, all of us.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So, what happens psychologically when a woman feels invisible and still feels like she has to hold it all together?
hmm What happens? Again, that's very individual, but I think when you're no longer seen, you are lonely. You're not participating anywhere. You're not doing anything that brings you joy. And that means that as a result, you feel lonely. You're not in your circles of friends. You're not going out to do the activities you like. You continue your self doubt and you feel less than again. You don't fit in anymore. And that's, I think, when aging really starts, when you're losing that sense of self, that sense of belonging. um, and it's also true. I used to coach here in Maryland, in the United States, the
Mhm.
running team. So I was part of a group called Montgomery County Roadrunners. We all would meet every Saturday for a run, and then during the week, sometimes on the track. And that was my community when I was running. And it was so much fun because you get the gossip from everybody else from the week before. You solve problems of your marriages and children problems and all, whatever. Uh, the world was a better place after you went for the run and you had some snacks, and then you repeated that week after week. And when I had to stop running 3 years ago, I missed that community.
Um,
I was no longer part of the community, and they said, "Come out, you can walk with us. We're running, but you're walking." And I was like, "Well, you guys say hi, you run off. I'm done much sooner than you are with your runs." And then I go back home. That's not my community anymore. So I
yeah.
stopped going, but I did miss that support, that friendship, and the
Mhm.
exercise at that point. And when you're falling into that uh, loneliness, I had to find something else. And it took me a while to grieve the process that I no longer was a runner, number one. And number two, that I was no longer part of that community.
Mhm.
So I didn't see my friends anymore because all they do is running. And we didn't have many
Yes.
other things in common. But that was definitely a moment where I was like, oh, what do I do now? Where do I belong now? And I think a lot of women go through that phase in a different part of their lives. Like the kids leave the house, the empty nest is
Yeah.
one of those moments. You get a
Yes.
divorce. It's another moment like this. You go through menopause. Now what? My body feels different. I feel different. My hormones are crazy. And then as you pass that, then it becomes the life of, I'm looking at retirement. What does that look like? Where do I fit in now?
What is one belief about midlife that you wish women could unlearn?
Guilt. Stop
Guilt.
feeling guilty. I
There's
don't
so
know.
much shame and so much guilt, around
And we're
women.
guilty about everything.
Yes.
We're guilty that we're doing things right. We're guilty that we're not doing things right. We're guilty about guilt and guilt and guilt.
No.
And I don't know why it's been handed down for so many generations that we should feel guilty that we just automatically, it's a guilt. You have to feel guilty. And that's something that we definitely have to work on and stand up more for what we need and speak up for ourselves and
Mhm.
let that guilt not in at all. There's nothing to feel guilty about most of the time.
Yes. So in your book, tell me, do you speak about your own journey? Uh,
In my book, Pursue Your Spark, here it is. Ta-da! I love it. I love my cover.
Congratulations.
I know. I'm super excited. Um, I have both. I have stories that highlight my own journey, as well as that of my clients that then highlight, the approach that I take in the book with my Spark method, and that, or the Spark framework, I should say, that will help women to move forward in those different stages that they may find that there is a gap or they're trapped in that specific phase. And I make it's very real. So the stories are all true. I changed the names of my clients, but the clients who are in that book know when I talk about them. They're like, you didn't use my name. I was like, for privacy? And I
Of
said, yep,
course.
that was your story. Yes. And it's about, what when you walk into a room, what happens? When you start doing exercise, what are your doubts? When you're dealing with being stuck, or when you're
Mhm.
when you have roadblocks in your paths. And so there's a lot of stories. I also have 6 worksheets, because the book is supported with fitness and exercise and nutrition
Mhm.
strategies that are also there. But the book is literally supported with that because it is a self improvement book. To really, what I want women to do is grab the book, start reading, and then look at the index and say, huh, I'm at the R. That's what she's talking about in the spark. That's a
Mhm.
roadblock. I have a roadblock in my life. May not be necessarily fitness and nutrition related. I have somebody
Right.
who got the book and she says, I lost my job. Where should I
Mhm.
start with your book? I said, start with the R. I said, go through, read through the stories, get inspired, get some strategies of how they may apply for you to show up differently in your interviews, not to help you find a job, but show up differently. Who are you when you're now in this R for a job search? How do you represent yourself? And what can you bring forward that's benefiting you finding a job?
Yes. Heike, through all those stories, working with so many people, helping them improve their lives, is there something that you learned about yourself through other people's journeys? Something that you weren't aware of about
Oh my
yourself?
god. I learned so much about myself writing my book, Anna. It was ridiculous. And it confirms how the rest of me also is. Number 1, I like to tell stories. And
Mm.
I c- when my book was edited, my editors are like, you need to shorten those stories. Not everybody needs to know every little detail.
Why not?
And I said, well, yeah, why not? And they said, well, you lose the reader. And I loved my husband too. He rolls his eyes and he's like, can you get to the point? I'm like, no, 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 this is really important. So I like to tell stories. And when I'm on an interview, I try to tell good stories and minimize the extra. The other thing I learned is that I love lists. I'm
Mm,
a list maker, which holds me accountable for the things I want to do. I have a list right next to my desk where I write down not what I'm planning for the week, because I know what I want to do each week, but the things that crop up that I want to take care of. So I
mhm.
write those down as well. And in the book, initially, I had a lot of lists. And I was told, this is a book. This is not a to do list. Um, so, you learn about yourself. So I learned that I like to tell a lot of long stories and I like to do lists.
Yes.
Um, But but that's the same when I work with clients. I give them a list of things to do.
Yes, that's good. That's good. That works
And
for
that
me also, having a list.
yeah. And it's just like, "Oh, this is what I need to do," and not struggle it by Friday and saying, "Oh my god, I forgot about this." Um,
I think most people feel safe when they have a program, when they have a routine, like
yeah.
babies, you know. Like for me, having a routine makes me feel really safe because of my chronic anxiety. I've learned that whenever, I have my routine and I know my program and what time I'm going to do, it just helps me feel relaxed.
hmm Yep. But doesn't it sometimes also feel when you have a list and you can't quite accomplish it that it brings up more anxiety because you didn't stay on track?
Yes. Yes. It
Yeah,
does.
that's a
It
twofold
does.
of that. Yeah, I try to minimize my lists. Like that's why I said I don't have a to-do list for the week. I know on Wednesday I write my newsletter, on this day I do this, and this day I do this, and then the extras are on the side that
Mhm,
I want to
mhm.
accomplish. But if I don't accomplish them this week, it's okay. They're not urgent. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, of course. Does someone know? How do I know if I'm stuck because I'm afraid to move forward or because I'm actually exhausted?
These are good signs of being stuck. I'm exhausted. I keep running around in circles.
Mhm,
I keep not getting results. I keep doing the same thing over and over and nothing ever changes. That is a good way to figure out, I'm saying, you know what? This no longer works. Which is also a good example with exercise. In our younger years, we could beat our bodies up with high intensity workouts and whatever other crazy workouts we did. I used to teach kickboxing and all these wonderful things. Where now I have no desire to do kickboxing at all, which is
mhm,
just for me. Other women may say, oh, I'll still love it. And that's okay. But it is paying attention to where you are in your life and what you need at that point.
mhm.
And then say, you know what? That kickboxing, let's use it as an example, is just not producing the result I want. I don't
Yes.
feel stronger. I just feel beaten up. My body's always tired, and I may or may not have injuries because I'm hitting so hard, which could be a whole different problem. Uh, but but it's not working anymore. And instead of keep going around in the same hamster wheel or the same loop, let's just say, you know what? Let's sit down. Why is this not working? What could I do instead? And then try something. And people say, well, what should I try? I don't know what to try. And I don't care. Do something. I mean, anything goes. Um, my husband and I, this is just something for also bucket list is we
Uh,
just drove indoor go-karts.
oh.
We went to an indoor go-kart, with our little race
Yes, yes, yes.
go-karts and stuff. Oh my God, it was so much fun. But it was scary too because these things go pretty fast.
I'm sure they do.
But just doing this track and maneuvering the other drivers, and we had two different loops, and we had helmets on, and it was all like really cool and everything. We were buckled in so we don't injure ourselves. But after that, I felt so invigorated. I
Mm.
felt so like, oh, would I want to do it more often? No. But it was something, at least I wanted to try it and see.
Yes, you're open to trying new things.
Trying new things is
Mm.
maybe I will love it and I will do more often because they seem to have championships of this thing too. It was really fun.
And what happens if I don't want to push myself anymore? But I'm scared that resting, means giving up. Because
Mm,
sometimes, we just want to rest,
Oh,
but
rest is so
there's so much
important.
guilt with that rest that you just feel like you're giving up.
Rest and recovery are so undervalued by so many people. Oh my God. If I have a rest day or if I just lie on the couch and watch Netflix movies, I'm a loser. I am not
Mm.
good. I'm losing all my strength. And I should have been doing this. The should haves, also in my book. Uh, I should have been, maybe cleaning the house or doing weights or whatever. Um, there is guilt, but it's not about giving up. It's looking at rest as a moment of reflection.
Mm.
Just need a break. It's okay to take a break. It's okay not to always push hard and
Mhm.
want more. Because what does wanting more oftentimes result in? More stress, more anxiety, because we may or may not reach those goals. And I feel that at this point that it's like sit down and be honest with yourself. How exhausted are you? Is it really change? If you're missing this one activity, whatever it may be, does it really make a change in the rest of what's the result you're looking for? Or you're better off sitting on the couch reading a book, drinking some tea?
Hey, Kate, now that's another thing that I wanted to ask. Like, don't you think that sometimes we're not able to tell if we are exhausted? Because, we're always running around to do things. And I think we overlook the fact that we're tired. And I think most importantly, the mental exhaustion that we might be overlooking.
Mhm. Do you think that we all are energized, many women are energizer bunnies, that when we are not that way, that we have failed? If we're not always on and always going, that we have failed? I know I'm turning this question back on you.
No, and you found the right person, because I'm always anxious. Yes, I think that I'm failing whenever, I'm not able to do all the things that I believe that I have to do during the day.
During the day,
Yes.
we're packing on so much, and I just generalize this, and some of the people in your audience are saying, "Come on, Heike, I'm not like this," which is okay. No, more power to you. But I think that we are not giving ourselves a break because we're expected to be that way. We are expected to be on all the time. We're expected to make the school luncheons, then look pretty at work, do a full days of work while we're doing phone calls with the school on site. Then we go after school to soccer games or whatever extracurriculum.
Yes.
And then on the weekends, we do the homework with the kids, all
Mhm.
with a smile on our face.
Yeah.
And of course, we're
Exactly.
supposed to be a sexy housewife, a sexy wife as well, and good looking and not break a sweat because we can handle it. And the pressure we put on ourselves to be perfect, which I think that's a sign of being perfect when you're constantly overloading, because you also may seek gratitude from other people.
Mhm.
That's another flip side of that, in my point of view, that the more I
Yes.
do, the more people will love me.
Mhm.
But the more people love you for you doing stuff, the more they burden you with, and the more they have you do stuff because you do it so perfectly well and you do it with a smile on your face. And although your head is exploding, and that brings you back to, in that case, to set boundaries and saying, I don't have to be perfect and I don't have to do everything for everybody. I can say no and I can choose the things that are good for me, that I need to take care of my kids, yes, but they maybe can
Yes.
make their own lunches. And don't expect that it's all on us, and that we do it the best, which is, I think, also one of the downfalls we have. That we think we can do it best. Nobody else can do it like us. Like
Yes. Yes. Oh
the
my God,
husband,
I couldn't agree more. Yes.
the husband makes the sandwich, yeah, but the lettuce is on the wrong spot.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. How do we rebuild motivation when we failed, ourselves so many times?
We
To,
never
to,
fail
to the point that
ourselves.
we don't trust, our promises anymore.
I think we never fail ourselves. That's another myth that we are taught to believe, that we're failing. In my opinion, you never fail because you try again. This one didn't work. Maybe it wasn't for me. Maybe that one works better. Oh, let's try out something new, that we're not limiting ourselves to this preconceived notion that, oh, I failed again.
Mhm.
I'm not good at this. I shouldn't be doing this. It's not true. You may do it in a different capacity or with different people, or you decide that whatever that thing was that you had your heart set on wasn't
Mhm.
really just for you. No, you may it's like I remember when my husband and I, my second husband and I got married, he still is a fabulous cook, but he makes a big mess in the kitchen and he cooks these elaborate dinners. It's the whole like and but then he got a job where he had to drive to work. Before he could work from home, so he would, do all the meals throughout the day and it was, I mean, we're eating really well. But I said, I am not doing anything. I raised two children. I cooked all these meals like
Mhm.
lasagnas and big pasta meals to feed three of us with no money at all. And then he got this job away from home and he had to drive to work. So that meant that he didn't get home till 7 o'clock each night. Now, I'm not going to make him uh, start cooking and say, "Hey, you just drove home for an hour. When is dinner?" So I said, "All right, I will start cooking again." But I made a point of not cooking what I cooked for my children. Like the
Mhm.
German, like, here, throw this in, throw that in, and you're done. I mean, everybody's hungry, everybody needs lots of food. So, okay. I said, let me start with something small. So I started looking for recipes with no more than 10 ingredients. If it had 11, I would not make it. 10 ingredients, and I had to have the ingredients in the house. So it was nothing something exotic that I would have to go and buy. So I started with 10 ingredients. And I have expanded ever since, but I don't go usually more than 15 ingredients. That's what, like, nope, nope, that's too much. So I changed my perspective from
Mhm.
trying to emulate him, which was completely overwhelming, to not wanting to cook like I used to cook for my kids. I wanted to make something that was more appropriate for our age, more,
Mhm.
more proteins, healthier foods, lots of olive oil, and lots of good foods for us in this stage in our life. And I slowly just changed it. Do I feel like I failed? I didn't live up to it? No, I just changed gear. And that requires to
Mhm.
be flexible and not just set on one idea. It's not we fail. We are not flexible enough and willing enough to say, you know what? I'm going to shift my gaze a little bit over here and do this
Yes.
just a little bit different. Because again, Anna, it comes down to who judges you. You judge yourself. We judge ourselves.
Yes, but we are our worst enemy, aren't
Isn't
we?
it the truth? Oh my
Yes.
God.
Yes.
I do catch myself too sometimes when I say, Heike, why'd you just do this to yourself? You tell your clients all the time not to do that, and here you are. You didn't set boundaries.
So tell me something that you still struggle to this day, something that you are trying to work on yourself, but you find it hard to um, succeed in a way.
I'm struggling with self worth. As
Mm-hmm.
confident as I am, and as many things as I know how to do, and as long as I've been in the industry, and I just became a public speaker in Washington D.C. It's the Capital Women Speaker Club, and I'm now a certified member and speaker for the club. And before we got on this call, I was practicing my speech for next week, which I'm still stuck at. But I sometimes feel that because I don't have a degree, I have regular schooling. I did a apprenticeship in Germany for 3 years, so I'm a whole sales expert
Mm-hmm.
in that realm that I was, but I never went to college. I left after high school. That was that. And I struggle sometimes that people see less of me because I don't have higher schooling. I don't have an MBA. I didn't go to university. I didn't do any of these things. And I do struggle with that quite often. And that when somebody asks me a question, says, Heike, what about this Pilates move? And I'm thinking, why is she asking me about Pilates? Isn't there something else she wants to know? I mean, I have so many things I can ask about but the bottom line is I've done Pilates for over 20 years. I'm an expert in it. So
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
why wouldn't she ask me about this? And why do I feel like she's not valuing me? That is something I'm really struggling. My husband who has a PhD. He says, you know what? You're one of the smartest people I know. He says, you're street smart. You understand people. You have 2 businesses. I still have a brick and mortar business, Pilates fitness
Mhm.
studio here in Maryland. He says, "You're a public speaker now. You have all these credentials that you've worked for in the 40 years. That doesn't mean if somebody has a degree that they're better than you."
Of course not. Of
So
course not.
that's, that comes up, and as I get mm, very, nervous sometimes or uncertain, and which is not like me. So I'm really trying to take a deep breath when this question comes. And I put a smile on my face and say, they don't see you, air quotes, just as the Pilates teacher. And a good example was too this past week. We got our certificates from the club, and all of us were sitting in a circle. And then they also had speakers. And there was also somebody who was in the fitness industry, like I am. And she gave a speech, and my whole table turned to me and they're like, "Look, look, look, she's just like you. Awesome." Yeah.
Yes, yes. I'm also wondering, how do we make peace with a body that no longer responds the way it used to?
It's life. It is life. I mean, it just is. And I see it, I think maybe for me it's a little easier than for the average people, because I do have a client who's 100 years old, and his 95-year-old wife is driving him to my studio. I work with somebody virtually that's 88. And I see, and I work with this young woman who has Parkinson's, who is in her
Mm,
early 40s. Um, so I have the gamut of variety, and I see what the body looks like as we get older, what's not happening. And I hear it all the time. I used to play tennis. I can't do it anymore. I used to be an excellent skier. I can't ski anymore. I used to play table tennis. I have no reaction anymore. So as the body breaks down, so does what we can accomplish
mm,
physically and mentally. And we slow down. When I get to the airport, Anna, I need a longer time to check myself in with the machines, because it takes me a little longer to read all of this and follow the steps and like,
yes,
okay, than it used to be. It just takes longer. And w- I, th- I feel there's too much emphasis on what I used to do
yeah.
and now I can't.
Mm, mm,
And instead of saying, look at what I can still do, or I have a new hobby. My 88-year-old client just shared with me. Like I said, I train with her virtually because she goes around with a walker and all this. She just told me that in the facility where she lives, she now works at the bookstore.
mhm.
And she's checking books in and out. I'm like, great.
Yes,
And then when you look at the body, and I told you I'm full of stories. My other
I
client
love
said,
it.
my other client said the other day, "Yeah, I've been following your YouTube videos." And I said, "Oh, okay." She says, "You're so real." And I said, "Well,
Mm,
so what is that supposed to mean?" And she says, "Well, you have folds like I do, like the fat's coming over and the skin is loose." And I'm like, "Yeah." And she says, "You're not ashamed of this." And I'm like, "No." I said, "That's normal." I said, "If I stand up really straight and pose, I have no rolls. But
mhm.
if I sit down, everybody has rolls.
Of course. Even
Unless you're
skinny
super duper."
people have rolls. Yeah. I mean,
Yep,
while
yep,
sitting down. Yes.
yep, it's the skin. And I was like, "And your butt's not gonna be as perky when you
Mm,
get older." I mean, you can only do so much, even if you eat adequate amounts of proteins and you lift heavy weights. And she says, "It made me feel so much better about myself seeing you in a normal body." And that brings us back to social media. We
yes.
all age differently. We all look differently. And many of us have seen the 90-year-old woman, gymnast, former gymnast, still gymnast, who does the uneven bars at 90.
Mhm, mhm.
If this is what you've done your whole life, you probably, unless you have aging problems like cancer or arthritis or whatever else goes on, you can keep doing that. And that's okay. And that should be ideally a motivation for us, not the status quo to, oh, look at her
Mhm.
or him, what she can do. And I can't do that.
Yes. So, yeah, I think what you just said is the emotional work behind accepting aging. Because I was thinking that we have this tendency on focusing on the things that are negative. We never look at our positives, what we have achieved. Uh, and it's such a shame, you know.
Yeah, give
I,
yourself more credit for the things you do well, whether it's knitting a pullover, cooking an awesome meal, like what I'm doing when we're done. I'm going to out do shovel snow. I'm like, yes, best shoveling job ever. But there's no reason for us to put ourselves down and to
mm,
feel less and to doubt ourselves all the time.
yes.
Isn't it when you we talked about this a little earlier about fulfillment. What does fulfillment really mean to the person? And I think when we don't do the mind work, we don't understand and we just keep going with the same nagging feeling we're missing out, with the same nagging feeling we're not worthy, with the same nagging feeling of it's not me. And that can't, no, like I said, we're not always happy. There's moments when you go, oh man, really? But
Yeah.
But there can be so many more moments where you feel fulfilled with the life you lead, the people you have around you, the community that's a positive influence that lifts you up like my group. When they're all cheering, yay, made me so happy. I didn't expect that. So focusing on more what a fulfilled life would look like.
Yeah,
And again, it's different for everybody, but happiness and fulfillment are the most important thing.
of course. Yes. If you could speak to women standing at what feels like a dead end, like
Mm.
what truth would you tell them that might disappoint them at first, but free them later?
They're at a dead end. I would say you're never at the end of the road. You thought yourself into a moment that feels like a dead end because you're not allowing yourself to look outside
Mm,
what else is there. Like I said earlier, the
yes.
flexibility.
Yes.
And you focus so much on I want to lose these 10 pounds. I am not losing these 10 pounds. Now, what am
Yes.
I going to do? I'm doing everything right and I'm still not losing those 10 pounds. What am I going to do now? Change strategies. Because I'm sure you haven't done everything that you could do, like back off, take a rest, change strategy, go back to, and I want to just use this as an example, the weight loss is who told you you should lose 10 pounds? And I
Yes,
actually had
of course.
this conversation with one of my speaker friends. She said, Heike, I really want to lose 8 pounds. And I said, well, why do you want to lose 8 pounds? And she says, well, I'm looking at myself and I should lose 8 pounds. And I said, why? And she says, well, I don't know. I said, look at yourself. You look fabulous. You're a mom of two. You have a rocking body. You work out 5 days a week. I eat really, really healthy. I'm a vegetarian. I'm like, okay, great. And she's like, but I can't lose it. I don't know. I'm doing something wrong, which ties into what we said earlier. I'm like, your body just says, I'm really happy here. Unless you want to starve yourself, over
Right.
exercise, which we talked about earlier, then you will be the way you are. And look at you, how strong and confident you are. You're not at the end. You just have to look at it differently. And again, maybe it needs a good friend, a close friend who's willing to talk about it, or a coach that says, seriously, this is ridiculous. Let's put on more muscles. Let's work on more strength or work on more flexibility. Um, Instead of this arbitrary goal of the weight loss in this case. Because it's never a dead end unless we let it be a dead end.
Yes. So, what do you want women listening right now to know about themselves that they may have forgotten?
You are worthy. You have all you need already inside of you.
That's perfect. Yes. So, Heikki, um, tell me what are you up to now? Where people can find you? Um, Tell me everything.
everything. I am as I showed you my book. My book is everywhere on Amazon or Barnes and Nobles, wherever you live. In you can get it all over the world. Any of the major book retailers. We also have an audiobook, which is absolutely lovely. Uh, Currently, I am going to shovel snow. And but for going forward, we are broadening our reach with a book. That's my goal. So
Hmm.
I am coming on podcasts. I'm looking for speaker positions to share the message of Pursue Your Spark with many more women, as I'm doing here today as well. And you know, I'm looking forward to seeing my grandkids. I haven't seen them since Thanksgiving. It's time to
Oh,
see those little ones again. And, I'm like I said earlier, I'm into the mode of doing something different. I just started ushering. I don't know if that means anything to you. You go into a theater and you
uh-huh.
do the jobs they need. Like you tell people which seat they sit in, or you
Oh,
tell
yes, yes,
them,
yes.
or scanning in, and you do this for free. So you go to a play, you have a job, and you don't get paid for the job, but you get to see the show. And I just did this past week. It's the very
Oh,
first time. I love it. You get to meet so many cool people, like all the other people that are all ushers,
hmm.
and you get to see an amazing play, which I did. I was like, enjoy life. I'm like, I don't have any grand plans. I just keep plugging along with my business, with Pursue Your Spark and the blueprint, and then just more adventures on my side.
Great.
And people can find me. I'm sorry I didn't answer that question. People can find me anywhere with my name, Heike Yates, HeikeYates. I'm literally on all social media, or you can check out Pursue Your Spark, which also pops up pretty much everywhere. With my book, with my course, with my brand, it's all Pursue Your Spark.
Great. So thank you so much. I really enjoyed our conversation. I'm sure people learned so many things. And I really love the fact that you're, so open and you're trying new things. And for me, it seems like you're really, really enjoying life. Uh,
I- Yep,
and that's
I'm
amazing.
trying. I'm trying. No, I'm not even trying. I'm like, I'm just going to do this. And the more you think about it, the less you may want to do it, or you think, "Oh, should I do this?" And I'm like, "No, just do it.
Exactly.
What's the worst thing? You may like it." Like I like my usher job. I'm like, "Oh, I already signed up for the next play."
Exactly. Exactly. So, Heike, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Anna.
And to all of you out there, as we always say, remember, ego is here, you are here, and that's enough.